Hello, everyone. This is the diction and tone video that I have promised you. As you can see, the information for this video is going to be this narrative PowerPoint. You can find that in week 2, but we will go through diction and tone parts of it right now together since we didn't have time during lecture. It ends on slide 16, so want to go back and follow along, you're welcome to, or you can just kind of watch the video and listen to me talk. So there's 2 valuable things to be aware of when reading and writing your narrative. This one is diction and the next one is tone. We'll go through each one of these in a little more detail, just so you know exactly what it is that I mean by both of these. I'm sure you've come across 2 at some point in your writing career. All right, diction. Diction is just word choice, all right? I love this quote. I think it's a really fantastic summary of diction. So it says, good diction, precise and appropriate. The words mean exactly what the writer intends, and the words are well suited to the writer's subject, purpose, and intended audience. So we'll go through specific diction and word choice in a second, but I just want to emphasize that it might seem very time consuming to go through and think about every single word that you're using, but it is important to be aware of your word choice throughout the essay and the writing process, because it can very much affect the way your narrative, your argument can come across. So good writers are often thinking about the best words that they can use in order to convey their point. Let's go through some examples of diction choice. The first one is connotation versus denotation. A connotation associated meaning or emotional overtones the word has acquired over time, whereas denotations is dictionary definition or the literal meaning. Okay, so let me give you an example and we'll walk through it together. So if I say the word home and I say it in a sentence, this feels like home. There's 2 things that probably pop into your mind, all right? The first thing that might pop into your mind is the connotation. What I mean by home is that this is safe, that it's comfortable. So if this room feels home, probably thinking, oh, well, she means, again, that it's safe, it's comfortable, she knows it, there's something familiar about it. Okay, or you can think about the denotation, which is the definition, which means a place someone lives. So if I say this feels like home, maybe referring to the fact that this looks exactly like my home. Okay, so we want to be aware of both of these definitions. So when you're using a word, you want to think about what is the connotation of this word, what are people going to associate with this word, but also what really is the definition of this word. All right. Why am I not going to the next slide? Okay, there we go. Concrete versus abstract. Abstract words are ideas, emotions, and concrete words are things we can feel, see, smell, hear, and taste. The way I like to think about this is abstract things can't really put in a box necessarily and give it to someone, but concrete things you can. And when I say things you feel, I don't necessarily like emotionally feel, but like actually touch. So here are some examples. Words can be love, sadness, fear, right? You can't put in a box sadness for me, or love, or beauty, or fear. But you could put concrete words in a box. You could put a desk, a cat, a tree, or a wonderful cup of coffee in a box. So when writing, you want to think about the use of your abstract words and your concrete word. Concrete words really settle a reader into maybe the scene or the setting or your argument, whereas abstract words kind of have this more metaphysical feeling, so something kind of beyond the physical world. General versus specific words. General words, like it says, encompass many different subcategories of one thing, where specific words point to a particular category. Okay, so for example, if I want to say general words like car, NBA teams, or food, that allows the reader to kind of picture in their own mind a specific car, a specific team, or specific food of their own choice. But if I want the reader to know what specific car I want them to focus on, then I would exactly what car that is. So for example, a 2001 Ford Focus or the LA Lakers or an In-N-Out burger. So this is important to be aware of. Do you want your reader to just know that the person is eating food, or do you want them to know that they're eating a burger? And not a burger, do you want them to know they're eating an In-N-Out burger? Again, things to be aware of when you're writing, especially your narrative, describing things. So do you want more general descriptions, or do you want your reader to see very specific things within the narrative? Okay, the next is cliches. Cliche things to be avoided, okay? It's a phrase, expression, or word that's been so overused, it doesn't surprise people anymore. So here's some examples. Plenty of fish in the sea. Only time will tell. Scared to death. Time heals all wounds. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. At one point, these are really revolutionary, exciting uses of language. But now it's not, okay? Maybe you're excited by them, which is great. But point, when you hear someone say, well, there's plenty of fish in the sea, it doesn't really bring you any comfort. Maybe it does. It's not a very exciting way to comfort someone, right? Because it's overused. So a cliche in an essay can kind of feel boring, a little boring, a little not creative. So you want to be thinking about that when you're writing. Especially, I see these in conclusions a lot when people are trying to wrap up their ideas, and the use of cliches. So if there's any other ones you can think of, just add those into your brain. But here are some, like I said, that I've got listed. And you're always welcome to kind of Google more and see if there's any more cliches. There's so many, so many, but I only wanted to pick a few. Okay, the next is jargon. Jargon is specific language to a trade or profession. So here are some examples: medical field, sciences, military, technical language. I don't know why I could not read that for a second. So jargon is just specific vocabulary or phrases that certain trades or professions or even hobbies might use. So for example, let me think of a hobby that I have that has jargon in it. Okay, for example, like if I were to write a poem and I was to go and talk to people about poetry, I'd probably talk about meter. I would talk about the structure of it. We would talk about maybe the use of loose rhyme, or we would talk about slant rhymes, or we would talk about, I don't know, there's so many things, just so many different kind of words that you can use. Or if you are in, I don't know, cooking, there's lots of different language that you use as a cook, right? To talk to the fellow cooks in your life. So it's important to be thinking about this, because if you're writing on a certain subject, you want to think about your audience when you're using jargon, because you want to keep in mind, will your audience understand you? Will they understand the jargon? And if not, you're going to have to, right? So if I were to read an essay on, let's pick like the military example, I would probably need a little bit more explanation than who was in the military, because I have no military experience. So jargon's great to use, just really need to be aware of your audience when you're using specific language that fits in with specific trades, hobbies, jobs. Okay, the next is formal versus informal, and it's exactly what it sounds. Formal is impersonal. There's a lot of abstract words. Informal uses slang and references the reader. There's concrete nouns. For example, formal could be, dear sir, I appreciate your time, sincerely. Whereas informal, it's as if we're talking as friends, right? So you could say, dude, for sure, BRB, later. Yes. So again, this is when you really want to think about your audience. About, are you comfortable enough with your audience to write something a little more informal, or do you need to be more formal? So yes. Okay, let's think about tone. Tone is the attitude of the writer towards the subject. I like this quote as well. It says, tone is conveyed by the voice we use to express ourselves in our writing. I often think about tone when I talk about tone, I often think about like when you're a teenager and your mom says, don't use that tone with me, right? And so it's the way in which you say the words. And in writing, we also have a tone. You can often hear when someone writes you an email, maybe they're upset with you, right? There's a certain tone to the writing, just as you can hear when someone's excited for you in their tone, okay? So tone is easy to understand. We talk and we think about how we speak to people in our everyday lives. So there are just some examples. I will let you go through them. But for each one of the three, I would ask yourself, what tone would you have when you responded? So I'll go through the first one. If you say it's Friday night and your mom tells you that you can't go to Kyle's party, even though you got all your homework done, you might say, and then what would your response be? And then what would your tone be, right? But mom, please, right? It might have a different tone to it. So be aware of tone. Something I wanted to mention here about tone, though, is that diction plays a big role in tone. So if you're writing something that's very formal, that creates a certain tone. If you're writing something informal, for example, it creates a certain like friendly, casual tone. If you use that jargon that we talked about, that creates a certain kind of tone to it as well. I mean, any type of language choice uses, it affects tone. Okay, so you want to be aware of your tone when you're writing. A lot of times I see, not so much in the narrative essays, but specifically in the argument essays, I see a lot of people use really aggressive tone, and they don't mean to, but they're so passionate about their topic that it can come off aggressive. So that's something to think about as we move forward with our essays, is how do you try to convince someone without yelling at them? Okay, so why would a writer choose the narrative form? I think we've talked about this. I think that's all I have for diction and tone. Let me just click through and make sure that's it. Well, fabulous. Thank you for coming to Diction and Tone lecture. I hope this was helpful. As always, let me know if you have any questions. All right, everyone. See you later. Happy writing.